People ask why a loving God would allow such suffering in the world. And yet, God knows what suffering is all about, not merely in the way that God knows everything, but by experience. And so we have no right to question why God would allow us to suffer, no right to question his love for us. Jesus was the only innocent person that ever lived. And yet he suffered pain of a kind and a degree that exceeds what people will ever suffer. He was beaten, whipped, and crowned with thorns. And he died after facing the excruciating pain of crucifixion. So why did God allow his son to suffer such pain and to die on a cross? He did it to display his love for us. Romans 5 and verse 8 says, "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Christ suffered to pay our debt of sin so that God could forgive us. Now, no sinner could pay for the sins of others, but Jesus Christ was a perfect man. God in human flesh was able to bear the sins and sorrows of the world. He was a perfect sacrifice. As Hebrews chapter 7 and verse 26 to 27 says, Christ died for our sins. He took our place. It's called penal substitution, and it is absolutely central to the Christian faith. By way of example, Dr. Andrew Sach says, just imagine that you've been given a detention at school. And you say to the teacher, "Can someone else sit the detention for me?" The teacher thinks, well, I'd like to see you find someone. And just because the teacher is so amused by your suggestion, she says, yeah, sure, someone else can sit the detention for you as a substitute. Gustav will sit the detention for me. Gustav is your Cocker Spaniel. It's got to be another human being, another student. He can't sit the detention for you. And so you think about it for a moment and you say, well, Kieran will sit the detention for me. The teacher says, no, Kieran can't sit the detention for you. He's got a detention himself. So sorry about that. It's got to be somebody who is both like you and who is innocent. But of course, none of us is innocent. He's got to be a fit substitute. You can't substitute a Cocker Spaniel for a human, and yet they've got to be innocent. Now, God is not like us in that God is God. God is immortal. He cannot die. He is eternal. So Jesus had to become like us in order that he might die. And that's really the reason why Jesus was born as a human being. You might say that Christmas was for Easter. He was born that he might die. He had to become human so that he could die. An exchange took place. He became our substitute. Jesus died instead of us. Jesus suffered so much for each one of us. What more could he do?